Okay, thank you so much. It's exactly 8 minutes past 6 p.m. The president of the African Development Bank Group, Dr. Kiwumi Adesina, our very magnanimous and generous host, Ghana's Minister for Finance, Honorable Kenneth Ofori-Atta, senior members of the bank's leadership, and we're expecting some more to come. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, welcome to this closing press conference of the 2022 annual meetings of the African Development Bank. It's been a pleasure having you here for a whole week, and I hope you've had time to see what the bank does in Ghana, and you've been able to hear it all from people who benefit from those projects that the bank is running here in Ghana. And this time of the hour, it feels like one of those old times when you go back to the days when families would gather under a baobab tree or under a bonfire for storytelling. So this is really a perfect time for storytelling. And I'm going to invite storyteller number one. That's another title we are adding to our president of the bank, to share with you a few remarks, and then we'll open the floor for your questions. And when I come to you, please, one question, go to the point. It's late. We need to be very good journalists the way we know it and be succinct. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Director of Communications. My dear brother, Honorable Minister of Finance, Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, the Minister of Finance of Ghana, and the Chairperson of the Boards of Governors of the African Development Bank for the 2022 annual meetings of the bank. Well, you know, you've heard a lot from me and from us throughout this week. You see us up there, we explain things to you. But I want to especially thank you, the media, the journalists, the press, for actually coming to our annual meeting. Because it doesn't really matter what we do, you know. There's got to be stories about what we do, how we do it, who we do it for, the impacts of what we're having. And there is no better way to get those stories out than you from the extreme state of the media. So because I will be moving between French and English, I will move too quickly sometimes. J'aimerais vraiment remercier tous les membres de la presse qui ont assisté à cette assemblée annuelle de la Banque africaine du développement. Votre temps, c'est très important. Votre engagement, c'est très important. Votre confiance dans la banque, dans l'Afrique, c'est très important. C'est notre continent que nous savons. Donc, c'est très important qu'on puisse avoir les informations, le fait est très important pour que vous pouvez communiquer, so that you can communicate the true stories of who we are and what we do and why we do it. So I'm grateful to you all for coming. As you know, the theme of our annual meetings was on achieving climate resilience and just energy transition. And these are very, very important issues for Africa. Climate change, as I said, is killing African economies. We lose $7 to $15 billion a year right now due to climate change. And that is going to rise to $50 billion a year by 2040. You see it in droughts, you see it in floods. We did not cause climate change. Africa only contributes no more than 4% of global greenhouse gas emissions. But we suffer tremendously negative impacts of that every single day. We are pummeled by droughts, by floods, by swarm of locusts that destroy infrastructure, that destroy lives, that puts our economy backwards, even when we try to make progress. And at these annual meetings, we, at the African Development Bank, did an analysis of how much Africa needs to be able to adapt to the climate change, but most importantly, in terms of energy transition. When you look at how much Africa actually needs for climate change, it needs to be compensated for growth it has lost because others were polluting. And our estimates from the African Economic Outlook showed that Africa will need about $4.6 or so trillion in terms of the actual amount. That's up to 2063. Maybe up to almost $167 billion a year or so for the negative consequences of climate change. So that's the amount that Africa really needs. So the point I'm making is a very simple point. Africa needs resources to adapt to climate change. And we need those resources very, very fast. I want to also comment to say that throughout these annual meetings, a number of things came out as very strategic for Africa. One is the importance of agriculture. Africa must become a solution to global food crisis because Africa must unlock the full potential of its agricultural sector. What Africa does with agriculture will determine the future of food in the world because 65% of all the arable land is in Africa that is not yet cultivated. So we heard in this meeting from our boards of governors that the African Development Bank should do more in agriculture, and we will. As you know, Feed Africa, it's a big strategy for us. We are going to ramp up support to make sure even as we deal with the current emergency situation that will drive structural transformation of agriculture. Mais en fait, le plus important pour nous, c'est que l'agriculture, c'est très important pour nous de faire trois choses. D'abord, diversifier nos économies. Deuxièmement, transformer tout le milieu rural, qui sont malheureusement aujourd'hui devenus comme des zones de désespération. Il n'y a pas l'espoir là-bas, il n'y a rien là-bas. Et troisièmement, pour la création d'emplois. Et cette agriculture, dans laquelle on va faire beaucoup d'investissements, sera un type d'agriculture moderne, avec les technologies appropriées, bonne productivité, mais aussi encadrement avec l'infrastructure qu'il faut, l'infrastructure routière, l'infrastructure d'énergie, l'infrastructure d'irrigation et la logistique. Le temps est venu, the time has come for Africa not just to produce food. Africa must process food. Africa must package food. Africa must have quality standards on food. And Africa must export to others. So when we talk about agriculture, we're not talking about agriculture to maintain poverty. No. Agriculture to create wealth for Africa. That's where we are today. I want to say something about the just energy transition, which is one of the other part of the meeting that you had. And the conclusion is that Africa needs to have just energy transition but it needs to be just and realistic energy transition. And that we must ensure that there must be access, affordability, and security and stability, security of energy for Africa. And that even as we optimize our use of renewable energy, natural gas must remain a fundamental part of the energy mix for Africa. The African Development Bank is spearheading engagement with a group of G7 countries that have provided $8.5 billion to support South Africa on its just energy transition. We are going to work with them, with other partners, to help to mobilize more resources that will allow South Africa to have the cash it needs for just energy transition. Energy transition should be fully funded. Energy transition cannot have uncertainty of financing. Energy transition must not create political risks. Therefore, the African Development Bank, we are working to make sure we can help with our business model that we have developed to help South Africa mobilize up to $40 billion that it needs for the just energy transition. But let me be clear, that will require the G7, the other countries, foundations, philanthropic institutions, to probably come up with about $17.5 billion for grants, for concessional financing, and for guarantees, which we will use our business model to help leverage for them to get $40 billion that they need for financing the transition. And as I said before, and I'll say it again, we will do it in such a way that South Africa will not get into any debt. That's a very, very important point that I want to make. Let me say that in these annual meetings, we talk quite a lot about the African Development Fund. Because as you know, the African Development Fund is 50 years this year. Nine out of the 10 countries that are most vulnerable to climate change in Africa are in sub-Saharan Africa. In the world, are in sub-Saharan Africa. 9 out of 10 most vulnerable countries in the world to climate change are in Africa. 100% of those are the African Development Fund countries. So it's very important for us to make sure that we support these African Development Fund countries. So we talked, that's great support for us as we look at ADF 16, the African Development Fund 16th replenishment. I'm grateful to all of our donors, our partners, who have shown very, very strong commitment towards that. And the most important thing that came out of our discussion is very strong support for the African Development Fund to use the equity it has accumulated over time to be able to go to the global capital markets to generate the money. Of course, we will still have to finalize all of those with our board of governors and our board of our directors. But very, very strong support to leverage the equity of the bank, of the fund. And we believe that if it goes to the market, as we have strong support for in the communique, you will see we can raise $33 billion for it, which will help a lot of these countries. And let me also say that there's very strong support for the special drawing right, droit de tirage spéciaux, le Fonds monétaire international doit être passé en partie de ça, passé par la BAD, Bank African of Development. So strong support for Africa to get, we need $100 billion of special drawing rights, but all the governors in the discussion really, really very overwhelming support for the special drawing rights, part of it to go through the African Development Bank channel to the bank, and we can use it to leverage 4 times the resources for Africa. It's an ongoing conversation, but it was very encouraging to see how much support that actually got from our governors. The other thing that I want to mention to you, it's on the issue of private sector. At this meeting, it was said that the private sector, we should support more private sector. And as you know, the African Development Bank has been doing that. We support private sector through private equity investments in companies. We support through lines of credit that we give to financial institutions. We provide trade finance because trade finance is very important as well. We also support countries to do business, investment, regulatory environment, improving the business environment in their countries to attract investment. And finally, the bank, as you know, has, and the partners support the Africa Investment Forum, the Forum d'Investissement en Afrique, where over the last 3 years we've done it. We've been able to attract investment commitments to the continent worth about $110 billion US, which is huge. So we'll continue to do that because private sector is the engine of growth. We've got to create jobs. I want to also let you know that we talked about security. Development can only happen when we have security. So the days are gone when security is looked at something for others. Security is now part of our own thinking in the bank, because we must support the countries to address security. So there must be a link between security, investment, growth, and development. So very strong support for the bank's effort to develop what we call security indexed investment bonds. Ce sont les obligations de la sécurité indexée. C'est des obligations sécurité, c'est ça, non? Security Index Investment Bonds, c'est comment? Obligation indexée sur la sécurité, non? Oui, c'est bien ça. Oui. Et on est en train de développer ça. Il y a un très grand soutien pour nous aussi concernant le système de stabiliser nos économies contre tous les chocs exogènes. Il y a les chocs exogènes financiers, chocs exogènes économiques, chocs exogènes qui viennent de toute la pandémie et tout cela. Mais c'est seulement l'Afrique qui n'a pas un système qui le protège contre toutes les bouleversements des crises qui viennent partout par là. So the bank got strong support for our work to develop Africa Financial Stability Mechanism, which will protect Africa, just like Europe, from, as a first line of defense, from a lot of these shocks that we see. So we can build buffers for ourselves. And 2 more things, and maybe 3 more things, I'll close. The bank will focus a lot on debt management for Africa. We have to have transparent debt. We have to have quality debt. We have to have sustainable debt. And we have to make sure that we work collectively, and we will, with the World Bank, with the IMF, with the G20, on the G20 common framework to ensure that the private debt and the commercial debt of Africa is well dealt with, because that is a problem. Almost over 40, almost 44% of Africa's debt now is held by private sector and commercial lenders. Very expensive debt, short-term debt. It's a big problem, but we need to have the common G20 common framework to work, and we will work on that. It was one of the things we've been asked to do, and we'll work on that. And as part of that, I can take some questions later on, but I just wanted to be aware of that. Let me make 2 points and I'll close so that you can ask your questions. I discussed with our board of governors about what my vision is for Africa and for the bank over the next 10 years. The next 10 years. My time as president will end in 2025. So I am not saying this because I'm not going to, we don't do third term, we don't do anything like that at the bank. So, but we have a 10-year strategy that will go from 2022 to 2032. That's my responsibility as president to chart that way based on all of what we've done. And I made that presentation of that to our board of governors. And I can tell you that vision, that plan was unanimously approved, endorsed by them. And we are going to now put pen to paper and look at it. Some of the elements of those will be how to sustain Africa's economic recovery from the pandemics and the Russian war in Ukraine. We will talk about the whole issue of pharmaceuticals industry development for Africa, vaccines development for Africa, and quality health infrastructure development for Africa as part of health security for Africa. A part of it is on climate change, which I've talked about. Then about supporting Africa for just energy transition, fragility, dealing with fragility and insecurity, supporting women and youth, economic governance, in particular economic governance over Africa's natural resources. Look, Africa is not poor. Africa just has to manage its natural resources better for wealth. And we will, in the next 10 years, you will see us invest a lot in how to be able to help African countries to do that. And last, of course, is the whole issue of long-term financial sustainability for the bank, making sure that whatever we do, we mobilize a lot more resources. And finally, I was delighted, as I said in my opening remarks actually, our board of governors discussed the governance instruments of the bank after 2 years of work on that. And of course, I am extremely pleased that the governance instruments of the bank were found to be of global standard. That meets the standard of any other global financial institution, or even any global institution for that matter. That's fantastic to know. I knew that before. But it's good to have the rigor and find that actually the African Development Bank governance system and frameworks and institutional instruments are world-class. Of course, we will improve just like anybody else. What is this guy that always does, the British guy, when he runs, he puts his hand up, it's a British, Mo Farah. Yeah, even if Mo Farah breaks the world record, he still has to improve because he has to keep winning. So there's always room for everybody to do that. And as you know, the Global Finance ranked the African Development Bank as the best multilateral financial institution in the world for 2021. We were ranked the second, the African Development Fund, the second best multilateral concessional financing institution in the world. As I said, even ahead of the World Bank and IDA, no competition. And the last one, of course, is that the African Development Bank was ranked by Publish What You Fund as the fourth most transparent institution in the world. So I'm proud of the African Development Bank. I hope you are. And so now work begins to put all of this into action. But I will appreciate, as you go, write our stories. Write our true stories. Our stories are great stories. Every single day, we work, we labor for a continent we love, it's not a job. It's a responsibility for today and the future generation. And I know by God's grace, we'll do even better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I remember one day we were talking and I asked you, how are we going to do that? What's the starting point? And you told me, Solomon, it is self-belief. Thank you. So we'll start now our question and answer session. And I know I owe a debt to some colleagues who I couldn't fit into the first day we met. So we are going to start with, that's Yinka from Bloomberg. Then I'll come to the gentleman here waving furiously your hand. And then I will cross over to Angel on my left. So Yinka, the gentleman here, and then Angel. Yinka, please. Press the button on your table mic. Try. Equipment. Okay. Yeah. It's working? Take another one. Yeah, go to another one. Okay. Very good.
Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry, let's turn to this.
Yeah.
Thank you for that summary, sir. My name is Yinka Ibukun. I'm West Africa Bureau Chief for Bloomberg News. And my question is, what do you make of a decision by European countries to court African gas producers while at the same time discouraging investments in gas projects on the continent? Thank you.
The gentleman here with a white robe, if you... Is yours working? Try it, please.
Wait.
Maybe remove your mask so that you can speak properly. And guys, those who are adjusting the equipment, can you pump up the volume a little bit, please?
All right. Nigeria natural gas is over 200 trillion cubic. Jeffy Yatse from The Guardian. Over 200 trillion cubic feet. That is Africa. Nigeria is number one. Globally, Nigeria is among the top 10. But even within the country, investment is an issue. Sometimes when you hear there's a collapse of the national grid, it's always about gas. And I'm asking, for AFDB, it's quite interesting to hear that natural gas is going to be part of our energy transition. And going forward, what investment plan is AFDB looking at? Let's look at long-term. How do we intend to leverage these natural resources for Africa to power Africa? Thank you very much.
Very good. And then Angel, and I can see you're keeping your questions very short and pointed. That's very good. So Angel, Angel is sitting right there. Okay, good. Raise your hand up.
Thank you. My name is Angel from The Guardian, Tanzania. How ready is the market for African products?
The what?
How ready is the market for African products?
How ready is the market?
For African products. Yes, please. Yeah. Do you mean international global markets, Angel? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Mr. President will take those three first and then we'll come for another round of questions. Okay, two more. Okay, let me come this side. Let me start here. The gentleman from Zinua News Agency. Wait for the microphone, please.
Thank you very much, sir. That was quite an impressive summary you gave us. Now, talking about gas,
just say your full name, by the way.
yeah, the name is Justice Lee Adoboy from Xinhua News Agency. Now, talking about natural gas remaining an integral part for Africa's energy, I realized that recently when the Ukraine crisis came and some European countries have been cut off from Russian supply, they started turning their eyes towards Africa. But I also realized that here in Africa, some countries have abundant gas resources, yet their next door neighbors are in need of gas to power thermal plants. Then also we have some countries that have increased their thermal capacity, but then some of the times it goes waste and it creates certain financial difficulties for them. What steps is the bank going to take to actually create these linkages among the African countries to be able to maximize the use of these critical resources for Africa's sustainable energy capacity? Thank you.
Justin, thank you so much. We'll go at the back, that side, so you don't have to run too much. We'll go at the back, the gentleman in yellow shirt. Go at the back. The gentleman in yellow shirt at the back.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Morris. I work with Ghana Television. So a lot of the discussions around key proposals at this meeting, talking about the AFD going to raise more capital, channeling the special drawing right through the AFDB account, appears to be inconclusive. I just want to understand whether there are any timelines when we can see some of these things coming into fruition. Thank you.
Is Morris from Ghana TV. Morris, just stand up again, once again, Morris. Yeah, from Ghana TV. Okay, Mr. President, we'll take those 5, then we'll do another round.
Let me start with Yinka Ibukun on the issue of the European Union. I thought I saw her somewhere. Yeah, okay. On the issue of the European Union and the issue of gas. You know that the European Union depends on roughly 45% of its gas supplies coming in from Russia. And that's probably about anything, a little bit over 450 billion cubic meters of gas, which will now be coming. And as that gas is no longer available, obviously, that actually shows the weakness from over-concentration of supply of a whole region on a country. That's what the European Union Commission said. So that affects the energy supply. You can see the prices of energy, how they've gone up in Europe. France, just a few days ago, had to announce plans to give subsidies to households to be able to afford price of energy. And this is not happening during winter. If it was during winter, it would be terribly more disastrous. So the issue is that Europe has to look, and Europe is looking for other sources of supply of gas. And so I'll take some of the questions together because they're linked. First is, Europe, in my view, should look towards Africa. Because Africa has a lot of gas. Ghana has gas deposits. Cote d'Ivoire just found gas. Senegal has gas. Angola has gas. Nigeria has gas. Algeria has gas. Morocco has gas. Tanzania has gas. Kenya has gas. Mozambique has so much gas that we actually, from the African Development Bank, working with partners, helped it to have the $24 billion liquefied natural gas project, which will make it the third largest supply of liquefied natural gas in the world. Well, you heard from President Nyusi. Africa's contribution to global greenhouse gas emissions is less than 4%. we are committed on this continent to energy transition. We are committed to renewable energy. As a bank, 86% of our investment in power generation goes into renewable energy. But as they say in my country, Nigeria, that says the eyes that cry must see at the same time. You gotta be pragmatic. Natural gas is fundamental for energy security for our continent. And when somebody says, if you do that, maybe you will contribute to global greenhouse gas emissions, let me disabuse your mind from that. That is not so. If Africa today were to triple the use of natural gas for energy, for power generation, it will only have contributed less than 0.67% to global greenhouse gas emissions. So I really believe that we've got to be pragmatic on this particular issue. So linking that Yinka's question back to Jeff's question from Guardian in Nigeria about investment plans in gas. Of course, gas to power. Gas for fertilizer manufacturing. Without fertilizers, how can we produce food? Liquefied natural gas for clean cooking. What people have in rich countries, to many in Africa, is just a dream. I always wonder when I school in the United States, many of you go to Europe, you travel all about the advanced countries. You need something to cook, you just turn on the stove. It's gas. Majority of Africa, you want to cook, you go out to first go and cut the fuel wood. You buy the charcoal. Then you put your mouth there and you blow it. Your eyes, secondary impact of smoke. We lose 300,000 women every year in Africa. They die cooking food. We lose another 300,000 children just because their mothers slap them on their back while they are cooking food. So the mother dies and the child dies. And what are they trying to do? Just cook basic food. It's not acceptable. And when we talk about climate, deforestation, land use is the main reason for climate emissions, greenhouse gas emissions in Africa. And unless we have energy for clean cooking, this will continue. Just imagine today, with the high price of energy that has gone up tremendously, even those households in the urban areas that are using gas are not using gas anymore. They've gone back to using charcoal and fuel wood. And that will affect biodiversity. We'll lose our forests. That's not the way to develop. So that's why I'm saying that for us, investing in liquefied natural gas for clean cooking, it's very, very important. You know, development, it's about decent living. You had a president of Ghana. He said we should do it for the people and also for the environment. Both is what he said we have to do together. I'll say it again. I'm very, very much into climate and so on, but the eye that cries must see at the same time. Africa must not be marginalized, and our quality of life must not go down like that. And we are not contributing anything to global greenhouse gas emissions. So that's my position on that. And of course, The bank will have programs to do that in terms of financing all of those things that I've just mentioned. But remember, I just told you, 86% of all of our investment will be in renewable energy. You need to have a balanced energy grid system. Otherwise, nothing's going to work. Now, of course, the issue linked to the issue of justice on the point you were raising, yeah, justice, right? On Europe, is the fact that we need to actually construct, build, and finalize the Trans-Sahara gas pipeline that will link Africa via Algeria all the way to Europe. You need gas infrastructure, not just for export, but also for yourself. I see that as a priority for Africa, as Africa should become a market that can supply gas to Africa, to Europe, but we need to make sure that the infrastructure is there, and that's one of the areas that we want to see. We want others to invest in that. And last thing I would say is that we must not be flaring gas, because flaring gas actually causes a lot of pollution. So that's just all on gas. I think I've addressed quite a lot of the things about the gas. But the question that was raised by Angel, where's Angel? Yeah, about is Africa ready for? How ready are we in terms of Africa markets? Well, let me turn it in a different way. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the cumulative GDP of all the countries there is $3.3 trillion. And a lot of progress has been made in terms of rules of origin for countries so that you know who is producing what, where is it produced, and where will they sell it. A lot is being done in harmonizing those tariff and non-tariff barriers, which is good. However, I think the African Continental Free Trade Area should not just be a trading area. It should be an industrial manufacturing zone where you are trading value-added manufactured products from national and regional value chains that are competitive globally. Otherwise, you will be trading, if you are selling me maize and I'm selling you sorghum, it's trade. No tariff, no non-tariff barrier. We are both going to be efficiently very poor. So we must make sure that when we say we have high common external tariff, it means that things that you do not produce will still come in. Since you don't produce it, it means that it will just simply, the price cost will be transferred to your consumers. It doesn't mean you don't trade. It just means you pay a higher cost for things you don't produce. So we must make sure that zone is industrial manufacturing zone that adds value, that creates jobs, as it is done in Asia, as it is done in Latin America and NAFTA zones. All the zones that you see, free trade zones in the world, they don't trade sorghum and millet. They do high-value manufacturing. That's how they become competitive. And that's what I believe we should do. And the last question was from someone on SDR? Mars, yeah, okay. M-A-R-S? Morris, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you came from Mars. On SDRs and timing, you know, the thing is that development is not linear. We are with the minister, the Honorable Minister of Finance has been a big, in fact, this question, let me not answer it. Let me give it to the Minister of Finance, because he's been the leader on helping us also on this issue. Honorable Minister, it's about the SDRs, the ADF going to the market, timing, and how you see some of that, because let me let you take that question.
Thank you very much indeed. I think even, Mr. President, with regard to, let's say, the President's declaration, which the Vice President handed over to you, in there, it's really the importance of the SDRs, and therefore encouraging the Board of Governors to take it very seriously, urgently. And I would like to read maybe one or two of the statements of that. This is the Accra Declaration. And I think it's important because it really sort of manifests exactly what we are seeking to do. And the President, in effect, said that recalling the decision of the Assembly of the AU at the 35th Ordinary Session, 6 February 2022, calling for the reallocation of SDRs from well-and advanced economies to Africa, and recommends a portion of these are channeled through the African Development Bank as a prescribed holder to leverage the resources to provide greater financing for Africa. So therefore, he was noting that statement and calling on wealthy economies to channel a portion of their SDRs through an Africa Development Bank, a prescribed holder, and to meet the development needs to finance and capitalize Africa public development banks. Then he also stated that the call on the governors of the African Development to facilitate the amendment of the articles that preclude the African Development Fund from accessing the international capital markets to leverage its balance sheet and raise capital for the development of the continent. So really it is a matter of urgency, and in the discussions that we had, as the President alluded to, I think minds are being put to that, and today there was actually a committee meeting on the Africa Development Fund. I think the truth of the matter, some of the issues that we are debating is that the ADF is concession financing and therefore has been supported by grants and really cheap money. So the question is, if you go to the capital markets, that rate will be a little higher, and how do you do it? But that really just calls for blended financing between what we get and what we can get for the market. But the scale of needs, as the President has said, is really grown. And there's really no way that we can continue to depend on development partners for that. But the assets under management in the private sector clearly exceed over 200 trillion. And that is where we should begin to cut our teeth. And with a AAA financing, we expect to be able to generate that type of resource. So that's where we are. The 100 billion coming through the IMF, we've been as prescribed holders, you know, we should find a way to get some of those 100 billion to the fund. And also, with all of the SDRs that countries such as Germany, France, etc., are holding in their books, which really is a punctuation mark on the assets that they have. It's therefore looking at their regulations to also find a means to rechannel some of that to the bank. I mean, the spirit of the President's declaration is to say that we as governors and board members should look at an attitude which suggests that we can find means of solving this problem, but more importantly, with an absolute goal to make Africa Development Bank the preeminent, the dominant, the most dynamic institution, financial institution on the continent, as opposed to any other institution. So It's an issue of fierce urgency and necessary because of our needs, and that is what the President is going to lead with the Board of Governors to ensure that this happens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Mr. Minister, just briefly, Ghana has got gas. Is the European Union quoting you, Mr. Minister, for gas?
I mean, I have mentioned a bit about gas, and I mean, I think that the issue really, and I think I quoted Plato talking about rights being influenced by wealth or so, as to where we are now. But that shouldn't be the basis on which COP26 or COP27 should go. You know, as the President said, credits alone, if it's calculated over 160 billion, we should be looking at how we have used our resources for the West to develop. And suddenly, because of moving towards 1.5 degrees and climate adaptability, we are having to supposedly forego these resources. That is not the way to progress with our common humanity at stake. And therefore, in COP27, when we go to Egypt, we really should look at a way in which the world participate in the payment of the development, because we have these resources which we may have to sacrifice to ensure that we all have this 1.5 degree centigrade target. And I think that's fair, that's equitable, that's social justice, and we should insist on that.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Mr. Minister. I will take the last round of questions. So there'll be only 3 last questions. I will take from the lady sitting next to Angel, then the gentleman here from Switzerland, and I will take from SNBC guy, if you don't mind. Okay. So let's start with the lady there, then the gentleman here, and the SNBC. Correct.
Evening, Mr. President. My name is Doreen from Zambia. My question is around post-harvest losses in Africa. It is said that over 30% of food produced in Africa for human consumption is wasted annually, and this is a whopping 1.5 billion metric tons that does not reach the consumer because it's wasted either at production or at harvest level. I wanted to find out, what plans does the bank have to invest in any possible initiative that will help us save this? Thank you.
Okay, the gentleman here from Switzerland.
Yes, I'm Edouard from Mauritius and Switzerland.
Oh,
Next-
from
the
Mauritius.
next,
Okay, the one from Switzerland.
I'm
Yeah,
the-
excellent.
I'm the one.
Very well. Okay, you're the one. Okay.
I have 2 questions. How do you go to make the international, the African Monetary Fund become a reality? You have been talking about it a couple of times. The mechanism, the stability mechanism. I call it the African Monetary Fund. And the second question is, you talked earlier about common African negotiators at international platforms to discuss debt, to discuss every other thing. How do we go to make so that Africa will have common negotiators to defend the continent?
Okay, yes, let's have you here from Switzerland, then I'll go to CNBC.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nordella ici de l'économiste Maroc. Dans les assises, la BAD, dans sa stratégie de transition énergétique, a affiché son option pour les énergies renouvelables avec un mixage de gaz. Il y a un projet ambitieux. Entre le Maroc et le Nigeria. Est-ce que la BAD peut contribuer au financement de ce projet? Merci.
Okay, and then we'll take the last question from CNBC right at the back. Hold on.
So, good evening, President. I'm Kenneth from CNBC Africa.
Your microphone is coming, if you don't mind, Kenneth.
Sorry. All right. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, President Odeshina, my question is more around my question is more around the work you're doing to support countries on the just transition. You've given the example of South Africa and how you're going to be working with the G7 to spearhead some of this financing here, and how your model is going to help them achieve this without debt. And I'm curious if this is the model you're going to be using for other countries, or if it's a case of different strokes for different folks.
We can take that. We take more. All right, very well. Okay, so, okay, fine. Hold on. I'll come. Let's take the gentleman in this shirt here and the one at the back. Excellent. That's one.
Kingsley, Ghanaian Times. I'm asking whether...
Kingsley.
Kingsley, Ghanaian Times. I'm asking whether debt relief was on your agenda, and how much are you asking, how much of debt relief are you asking from your development partners? And I also want to find out whether Ghana made some request to the AFDB in terms of financing in relation to our economic recovery program, whether the government made some request to you, and are you going to grant us something?
You need to raise your voice.
I am asking whether Ghana made some request to AFDB since we are having the meeting in Ghana. Was there a request to you, and are you going to give us something for our economic recovery? Then, secondly, my question is, was this debt relief an agenda on your table, and how much are you asking for?
Okay, and then the gentleman in the back, yes, that's the one, exactly.
Thank you very much. Really, I get emotional when I talk about this. Daily, we see scenes of African youth. My name is Charles Brafo Anakwa. Charles Brafo Anakwa. Wontumi Multimedia. As I was saying, on a daily basis, we come across scenes of African youth, able-bodied African youth, migrating to Europe, Western Europe especially. They walk across the Sahara, through the Mediterranean, under extreme hazardous situations. Yet we are talking about Africa feeding itself, and we need the youth strength, to be able to produce more food. May I ask, Mr. President, whether there's any plan with respect to the African Development Bank, taking a critical look at this issue, because it could undermine the vision we have to feed Africa.
Okay, and then lastly, I'll come to you. You've been furiously raising your hand. It had better be a good question.
Don't worry.
Okay, je vais. Okay, let's go.
Je vais parler en français. Bonsoir, Monsieur le Président. Je suis Barthélemy Kwame du journal ActuRoute. Monsieur le Président, vous l'avez mentionné, l'Afrique connaît deux problèmes en ce moment. Il y a d'abord la pandémie de Covid-19 et il y a la crise en Ukraine. La pandémie a fait fermer beaucoup de frontières. Et jusqu'au jour d'aujourd'hui, il y a encore des frontières qui sont fermées. Alors que l'une de vos priorités, c'est intégrer l'Afrique. Comment est-ce que la Banque africaine de développement comprend cette situation des frontières fermées, et qu'est-ce que vous en avez décidé, ou quels conseils vous donnez aux États pour que cette question ne fasse pas reculer le développement, la croissance économique que vous souhaitez? L'autre chose, c'est que la crise ukrainienne fait augmenter les prix des produits sur le marché, notamment à cause de l'augmentation du prix du carburant. Beaucoup de pays ont pris des mesures pour essayer de stabiliser donc, ces prix du carburant. Vous l'avez fait pour la COVID-19. Yes. Vous l'avez fait pour le Covid-19 en débloquant des fonds pour les États. Est-ce que pour le carburant, la Banque africaine de développement envisage prendre des mesures de financement des États pour essayer de diminuer un peu le coût d'augmentation du prix du carburant? Je vous remercie.
Okay, thank you. We'll take you, the lady at in the red top. Then I'll come. Okay. Hey, come this way. Yes, exactly. And then we'll go to the gentleman at the back. Hold the microphone closer.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, pour la parole. Mon nom est Melba Mouzola, je viens de la RDC. En fait, lors de la dernière session d'hier qui a parlé sur la résilience climatique et les systèmes alimentaires, on a parlé du programme TAT. J'aimerais savoir, est-ce qu'il y a déjà des initiatives ou encore de projets qui sont mis en œuvre par la BAD dans le cadre du programme TAT pour ce qui concerne la République démocratique du Congo? Merci.
Okay, thank you. Last question, the gentleman at the back with the blue shirt.
Thank you very much.
Wait for the microphone. It's coming.
Thank you very much. My name is Eko Moses, also a reporter from Bloomberg. President, you mentioned a few billions that Africa may need in its quest to fight against the effects of climate change. Who funds those projects, given that, in your own words, Africa contributes only 4%? And do you think that the ownership structure of AFDB will give the leeway to have that implemented? Thank you.
Okay, more men have asked questions than women. Do we have any more women who have got to answer a question? Excellent, here from Egypt. Very good. No, it's okay.
Thank you, Solomon. My name is Dua Abdelmonem from Al-Ahram, Egypt. I have two questions. The first is, it was a great privilege for announcing Egypt as the upcoming destination for the annual meetings of the AFDB group. I want to know the main reason supports Egypt's selection. The second question is, the global challenges that affected the continent, elevating the debt rates. So what is the specific plan the AFDB targets to curb these rates of debt, these elevating levels? Thank you.
Good. All right, thank you. Mr. President, you want one more? Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm running a bit 1 hour late for another meeting, so but I thought we should take as many questions as possible because you've been quite generous with your time to wait. And so, sorry we couldn't take everybody else, but if you have particular questions you'd like me to answer, and you can send it by email, I'll be happy to respond to those questions just in case you're not able to ask that. So, I got time. Tomorrow I'm supposed to rest a little bit, but if you have 1 or 2 burning questions that you can't get us to answer here, I'll be happy to respond quickly to you by email so that your issues are quite quickly settled. On Doreen, on the issue of post-harvest losses. Post-harvest losses in Africa, we lose too much of our food. And when you lose too much of your food, the consequences are many. First, it's that you're creating a lot of carbon emissions, but then you're not benefiting from that because you're losing the food. The second is the fact that it drives up the price of food in the market. You're producing, but it's not having any impact on the market prices themselves. And you also have a situation that it leads to very poor incomes for farmers. So it's like, the way I look at post-harvest losses in food is you're pouring water into a bucket that has holes. It can't hold. So you have to stop the leakage. And while in developed countries, post-harvest losses are because there's too much food. So you have too much food, you can't eat it, so you throw it away. In Africa, it's not like that. It's like people don't have enough food. But post-harvest loss is what actually leads to the fact that they can't have enough food. So what are we doing specifically on that? The bank has launched close to $1 billion on what we call special agro-industrial processing zones. These are new investments the bank is making, special agro-industrial processing zones, new areas, close to areas where the farmers are producing, that we are going to create special agro-industrial processing zones, zones enabled with water, with infrastructure, with power, with logistics. so that the food and agricultural processing companies can locate in those zones. All of you here, except those from Europe or whatever, go and look at your countries. You will find that the food and agricultural companies are located in the urban center, in the capital city. Why? They bring in raw materials from outside, they process it, they sell it in the country. But they are not located close to the urban areas, rural areas that produce the food. Why? Because there's no infrastructure to allow them to do that. So what we are trying to do with the special agro-industrial processing zones is to reduce the cost of doing business by the food and agricultural companies in Africa so they can locate close to those areas. When they are there, they will be the off-takers for what the farmers are producing. They create a market, they process and add value there, and you stop moving out produce out of rural areas that are raw materials. You move out processed, packaged food. That's how agriculture is done. You will not go to America or Europe and see trucks carrying open tomato running around the place. Processed, packaged food. That's what we want to be having. That's how we are going to change our continent. And a lot of those post-harvest losses, when you're transporting tomato and you have somebody sitting on the tomato in the truck, what do you expect? So that's what we are trying to do on that. We spend almost $1 billion on that. And we are doing it in many countries. I think you are from where? Zambia. Prof, is Zambia one of the countries? Yeah, Zambia is one of the countries that we plan to actually do that. And there are other countries like Nigeria. I think there's Tanzania, Ghana, and several other countries that are there. Cote d'Ivoire as well, and Senegal. Mauritius, how to make the Africa's financial stability mechanism, what's working? Well, look, we've brought together a world-class group of leaders in finance, in economics, that are helping the bank to design this. One of them is your distinguished economist, finance expert of Ghana, the Minister Ken Ofori-Atta is part of that. Other members of that group includes Strauss-Kahn, used to be the IMF Managing Director. Others include Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. Other includes the former Prime Minister of Portugal, Barroso, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, Professor, what's his name, from Colombia, Joe Stiglitz. We have the people who actually helped the European Union to develop its European mechanism, stability mechanism. They are working with us on that. Those that have helped to develop the Arab stability mechanism are working with us on that. Those that did it in Latin America and those that did it in Asia. So all the regions of the world where you have regional financial agreements are working with us on that. So it's global. And we are working also very closely with IMF on that particular issue. So I expect that when the results are out, we'll be able to get it done. The issue of negotiations, are you talking of trade or climate? Any. Okay, the bank, African Development Bank, supports the negotiators, for example, for climate. We provide, for example, I think we're providing grants to support 70 negotiators that are going to be going to Sharm el-Sheikh to negotiate the climate thing for Africa. We do that for every COP. So it's just one of the things that we will do. And when you go and negotiate, you must know what you are negotiating, and most importantly, what you must not negotiate away. That's the most important thing. So we are doing that. On Morocco, in terms of ce que vous avez dit concernant le Nigeria et le Maroc, le partenariat entre les deux pays, je pense que vous parlez précisément concernant les engrais, parce qu'il y a OCP, Office Surveillant de phosphate, à Maroc, qui est le plus large producteur de phosphate dans le monde. Mais il faut NPK, fertilizer, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. To make that, you need to have access to gas, ammonia. So that is where I see a very good opportunity between Morocco and Nigeria so that they can produce the transform from just producing phosphate to producing NPK fertilizer. And actually, that discussion is ongoing as we speak. I spoke to Mr. Tarab, who is the CEO of OCP, and the bank will support that engagement to make that to sure that happens. Kenneth, CNBC Africa, what model will you use for the joint energy transition, whether it's the same model? Well, look, what we're trying to do is this. Let me first tell you some of the things we are going to do for South Africa, even beyond the Just Energy Transition Facility. We are giving $500,000 to the government Ministry of Finance to develop the to strengthen the committee that the President Ramaphosa set up to develop the, what is the name? Is it Presidential Council on what? Yeah, Climate Change Task Team. In addition, we will provide $5 million to the government of South Africa to allow them to actually develop the plan. In addition to that, the main utility in South Africa is Eskom. Eskom has its own Just Energy Transition program. The African Development Bank has committed that we will provide, of course, to be approved by our board, subject to our board approval, $400 million to Eskom to do development of renewable energy, to also do the development of battery storage systems. So those are things that we are going to do. But in addition to that, the African Development Bank plans to establish Just Energy Transition Facility within the bank. It's not South Africa-centric. It's a facility that will receive grants, that will receive concessional financing and guarantees, that allows us to have a special purpose vehicle that we can use to go raise money on the capital markets. In this case, the first test case is South Africa. But we want to use that facility to warehouse all the coal-based assets in Africa and all the heavy fuel oil power generation capacities we have, and to transition them in a pragmatic manner by using a lot more renewable energy to reduce the emissions. So it's going to be a facility at the bank. That's what we're trying to do. But our first thing is we have to get South Africa right, because South Africa has how much on coal? It's about 44,000 megawatts of coal, so it's very important. But as I have said, South Africa, Mpumalanga, where's the area? Is it Mpumalanga? They have coal family businesses, they have communities that have depended on this for years. So we're dealing with lives of people and communities and so on, so we do not need to have the money in hand, and we are working together with the South Africans to make sure that works. If we get it right in South Africa, we'll get it right everywhere else. On Kingsley's point on how much debt relief on the agenda, no, debt relief was not on the agenda. On the issue of whether Ghana gave us something, is that what your question? Huh? No, Ghana did not make any request. Ghana was very hospitable in helping us to organize it. We actually owe Ghana a lot of thanks. On the issue of youth, Charles, that you raised, where's Charles? Yeah. Look, the future of Africa's youth is not in Europe. It's not in America. It's not in Asia. It's not in Latin America. It's right here. This continent must grow at a pace that can produce quality growth to provide quality jobs and livelihoods for its young people. We are a young continent. And so to support that, the African Development Bank is currently designing what we call Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks. Youth Entrepreneurship Investment Banks. There will be new financial institutions that will be investing in the business of the youth on this continent. And Ghana is one of the countries in which we're going to be doing 13 countries, and we expect to finish their design by the end of June. And after that, then we will continue. But it will create youth-based wealth. We have to create youth-based wealth on the continent. When the young people go into the bank, and you see people like myself with bow tie and all of that, and three-piece suit and so on, what they say is, when a young person comes right through your door, I know you're a bit nervous, but give me a minute. Walk through the door, what you see is risk, risk, risk. You don't see opportunities. And if you go to commercial banks, a young person at 21 years old, they will say, can you please go and bring your tax receipts for the last 41 years? So how? We must put the capital of Africa on the line to bear the risk of creating youth-based wealth for our young people. That's a responsibility we must have, and we are leading on that. On the issue of Bartholomew, how to open borders that were closed to COVID because of COVID-19, well, you answered the question yourself, because they were closed due to COVID-19. But some of the borders that are still closed are probably because of areas in which they were still looking at very low vaccination rates. And so there's a lot of concern about not wanting to get infections. But as rate of vaccination increases, that will actually come down. For example, right now, you have Africa's rate of vaccination is 16%. That's still very low compared to the rest of the world. In America, Australia itself is almost 80-something%. Latin America, 74%. So we do need more vaccines, and we do need to do a lot more advocacy to avoid vaccine hesitancy, that people don't just want to take vaccines as well. On the issue on the carburant, whether we will have a facility for carburant, the answer is no. No, we're not going to do a facility for subsidizing carburant, no. So, on n'a pas aucune facilité pour ça. Okay. On to, RDC for TAT, yes, we have a program for TAT already in DRC Congo. We are doing two things in DRC Congo. If you go to the Kivu area, where you have the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, they are working on cassava, they are working on maize, they are working on rice with technologies to improve productivity there. Secondly, is that we are establishing in DRC Congo a few special agro-industrial processing zones. And finally, is that we are investing $100 million in the road, it's not Kivu. Sorry, I said Kivu. Bukavu. Yeah? C'est Bukavu, no? C'est pas Kivu, c'est Bukavu. Are you from there? You know Bukavu? Oh. I have been there, so I know. Mais c'est Bukavu, c'est à Bukavu. So we spent, on avait dépensé $100 millions pour faire le kilomètre de la route là-bas pour improve agriculture there. Bloomberg's, Moses, I think, is that Moses? Yeah. Who finances the climate things? Let me say four things about that. First and foremost is there must be a polluter pay principle. Africa did not cause the emissions. So developed countries that cause the emissions are the ones that should pay for it. That's the first thing. And they should pay quickly because Africa is suffering. And we're only talking about $100 billion a year for all developing countries. It's not even Africa. Second is that we need to ensure that African countries have access to the climate funds, global climate funds. Unfortunately, African countries don't have the capacity to develop the the proposals that they can submit to many of them, therefore they don't get access to finance. But we got to make sure that is solved. Global climate finance funds don't actually support Africa. And Africa's big problem is not mitigation, it's adaptation. And we need more resources from them for that. The third is, what are we doing? The African Development Bank has doubled its finance for climate to $25 billion by 2025. Currently, as we speak, 67% of our climate finance goes to adaptation. It's the largest you will find of any financial institution in the world. So together with the Global Center for Adaptation, which is chaired by former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, we are working on we've launched a program called African Adaptation Acceleration Program. That program is to mobilize $25 billion for climate adaptation in Africa. And the last thing that I want to say is the importance of private sector in climate finance. You had the Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, talking about how much money you have in pension funds and sovereign wealth funds. A lot of the production activities are actually not done by government, they are done by private sector. So we've got to make sure we get private financing into climate. And that's why at the African Development Bank, we launched what is called the African Financial Alliance for Climate, AFAC, which brings together all the stock exchanges, brings together the central banks, the commercial banks, and other financial institutions to mobilize capital in the private sector to finance climate, green growth, and climate adaptation for Africa, and as well as mitigation for Africa. Just think of the following. If you have stock exchanges that are producing a lot of manufactured goods, and you decide to change the valuation of companies on your stock exchanges based on their carbon print, then you encourage green investments. In a world where the green is the in thing, the valuation of those companies will rise because they are green. And that tilts capital towards green investments. So I don't want to look at climate change as always just a problem. The green economy is a massive economy with circular economy as well, that Africa should position itself in. The private sector will have to play a very big role. So thank you very much. If I go beyond this time, this lady here will make sure I don't eat my dinner. And thank you very much for coming, and safe trips home. Thank you.
Okay, hold on, ladies and gentlemen of the press. Just want to say thank you so much for coming. Kingsley, do follow up with the Vice President for Energy, Kariuki, about what was signed on Wednesday to do with the mini grid project and net metering project here in Ghana. Do follow up on that. So, ladies and gentlemen of the press, thank you. Let's give a round of applause to the Minister and to the President. Thank you so much, Mr. President. Best of luck. Thank you.